What's going on, everyone? Welcome in to NFL on 365 Sports. I'm your host, Grayson Grundhoefer, and today we're going to continue our draft recaps, and we're going to be talking about the Atlanta Falcons. Let's do it. All right, everyone. So I'm actually kind of intrigued about what's going on in Atlanta right now. Obviously, this is a total rebuild, right? So they get to kind of start from scratch. You let Matt Ryan go, and now you're in a situation where you got Marcus Mariota, you got an incoming rookie quarterback that you're going to try to build around. But I think in general, this team is all about just trying to acquire as much talent as possible so they can begin a new phase in the Atlanta Falcons. So let's go through a few of their picks. Let's talk about kind of how they did throughout the draft. I'm going to go through their first 4 picks and then talk about maybe a sleeper pick in the later rounds that I really like. So with their first pick, round 1, pick 8, they took the USC wide receiver Drake London. Now, I really like Drake London. He was probably, I think I had him my second ranked wide receiver behind Garrett Wilson in this draft. And I really like him because kind of versatility and athleticism. So what I mean by that is he's a former basketball player, high-end basketball player, actually played at USC. So you know that there's some elite athletic traits there that he can play both at a high level in college. So you match that with the fact that he's got early production, which he had his freshman year, 39 receptions for 567 yards and 5 touchdowns. You match that with his elite production, his final year at USC, where he had 88 receptions for 1,084 yards and 7 touchdowns. Oh, wait, he did that in just 8 games this past year at USC. Absolute monster. I mean, if this guy was healthy for the whole year, he would have won the Blitnikoff. He would have won every single award and might have gotten into that, elite territory where it's like 1,500 yards and 10 plus touchdowns, which just would have been absolutely crazy for him. He's also 6'4", 219 pounds, so you know that he's going to be able to play the outside wide receiver position, which, in my opinion, is kind of where the money is made in the NFL. If you're a guy on the outside, you're just more valuable in my eyes than a slot receiver. Now, as far as just kind of his game in general, you kind of watch him, and he kind of gives me Mike Evans vibes a little bit. He's not as fast as Mike straight line, but great in the red zone, elite body control for his size, and a great catch radius, which is something that Mike Evans absolutely has, and so does Drake London. I also love that he played alongside Michael Pittman and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And the reason why I like that is because he was still productive despite those guys being there. And as we've seen, both of those guys are legit NFL wide receivers. And then when he got his opportunity as the one, he absolutely thrived. So to me, in general, you kind of look at the positives and they far outweigh any negatives that he does have. But let's just kind of talk about a few things that I see that, maybe he needs to improve at, or they just doesn't have or show on tape. So elite quickness, not really there. Does not get in and out of his breaks extremely well. Does not get off press coverage extremely well. I think the press coverage thing he will get over, but the quickness on intermediate and short range targets, I think is going to be something that he might have problems with in the NFL. Now, he also, yak-wise, is not great. He kind of looks like a tight end when he catches the ball, and honestly, his frame looks like a tight end. But the thing of it is that I don't think you need to have elite yak production, as we've seen with Mike Evans, to be a great wide receiver at the NFL level, especially if you're winning deep downfield and in one-on-one coverage down the sideline or in the red zone. So overall, I felt like this was a great pick. You match him with Kyle Pitts, and now, you're talking about 2 elite big targets on the outside for whoever their quarterback of the future is, whether it's the guy we talk about a little bit later or Marcus Mariota for a year or 2. Moving on to their second pick, round 2, pick 38, Penn State edge rusher Arnold Ebiketie. I like it. I like Arnold. I really do. You turn on the tape, you see a solid pass rusher. He's about 6'2", 250 pounds, has a 38-inch vertical, which is very intriguing to me. So elite explosiveness at the position to go along with the fact that he, at 2 different schools, was highly productive. He was at Temple in 2020. He had 42 tackles 8.5 for a loss with 4 sacks and 3 forced fumbles. That led to his transfer to Penn State. Obviously could move up a level from Group of 5 to Power 5, and really was outstanding, I felt like, at Penn State with 18 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, and 62 tackles overall. So you can kind of see the production is there for him to be very good at the next level, but there are some things that hinder him, and that's size. That's definitely an issue. I also feel like in the run game, he goes up against a bigger guard or tackle, he's going to have some issues against wide zone schemes and things where you're asked to get through a block, shed a block, and get into the backfield and tackle a running back while you're taking on, a 315-pound guy. He's going to have some issues there. But the good news is in the NFL right now, you just need guys that can get after the quarterback on third down, and I do feel like he can bring that to the Falcons pretty early on in his career. Moving on to their second pick of round 2, pick 58. Now, y'all, this is one of my favorite guys to talk about in the entire draft, just because when you go through his profile, you just kind of look at it and go, man, this guy just knows how to play football. And that's Montana State linebacker Troy Andersen. So he's 6'4", 243 pounds, ran a 4.4 240, and had a 36-inch vertical. So first of all, elite tester with elite size for the linebacker position. Now, this is where the fun begins in my mind. So he was Big Sky Freshman of the Year, an All-American as well at running back. Had over 1,000 yards, which is an elite running back as a true freshman there at Montana State. Then his next year, he becomes an All-Big Sky quarterback. Yeah, that's right. He started at quarterback his sophomore year in 2018, was very good, made the switch to linebacker in 2019, was an all-conference guy before getting injured prior to the 2020 season. Now, good news is Montana State did not have a season in 2020, so it didn't hold him back from playing, but obviously he had to recover. So everyone was kind of talking about, how would he respond his final year? Well, he just went out, became FCS All-American, Defense Player of the Year in the conference at the linebacker position, had 147 tackles, 14 for loss, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, and just became an elite linebacker, which allowed him to, of course, get drafted. Now, while I love him as a prospect, he does need some work. He's still raw at the position. He hasn't been playing the linebacker spot for that long, and you can see it. He's not great in coverage. He doesn't fill gaps the way you need to as a linebacker at the next level. He's going to have to take steps in the right direction, and he also does not have the instincts quite yet. Now, I do think those can be learned and can be figured out, as in he'll play faster eventually, but the instincts need to catch up to his speed and his overall athleticism. But I love the pick nonetheless. Moving on to round 3, pick 74, their 4th pick, and this is where things probably get really interesting for Falcons fans, because they're trying to figure out who's going to be their quarterback of the future, and their team just drafted a quarterback in round 3, and that's Cincinnati quarterback Desmond Ridder. One of the more intriguing quarterbacks. Now, I would call every quarterback in this class pretty intriguing, but for me, he's even more intriguing than most, just because I feel like you know what you got with him, but some people have varying opinions on him, and I don't see it, but I know a lot of people just kind of talk about how he does have a ceiling. I just personally don't know if there is a ceiling. So 6'3", 211, ran a 4.5 240 time, so a good athlete, and you see that on film. He does run pretty well, but for the most part, he's a pocket passer who can run. So to me, he's not an elite runner. Like, I don't see that on film. I just see him with the ability to run, get outside the pocket, and make some plays. So that's part one of this. The second part is he was a 4-year starter and was a winner. But to me, when I watched him, he was a system quarterback who played on a really good team in a weaker level of football. And that's kind of just where I'm at right now with Desmond Ridder. He did some good things. His final year was really good. 3,300 yards, 30 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions, 363 yards, 7 touchdowns on the ground. That's all fine and dandy, but it's not elite. Nothing about his numbers really stand out to me. Outside of maybe his accuracy, completed 64% of his passes. That's really good. But again, lower level of competition with the best team at that lower level of competition. So take that for what you will. He feels like a system quarterback to me, and he doesn't really feel like the quarterback of the future for the Falcons. Moving on to the rest of their draft, they drafted another edge pass rusher, a running back, an offensive guard, and a tight end. There's one guy I want to focus on as kind of their late round pick that I like, and that's BYU running back Tyler Algier. He was taken at 151. If you kind of look at the Falcons roster, they don't really have a ton of standouts at running back. Everyone loves Cordell Patterson, but he's 32 years old and looks to me more like a wide receiver than a running back. And I think he's a guy that they want to give fewer carries to and kind of allow to be more of a true pass catcher, which is where he thrives. So you go out, you get Tyler Algier, a guy who over the last 2 years has ran for 2,700 yards and 36 touchdowns. I think he's going to do a very nice job in that Falcons offense, giving them a true power back, a true every down back, at least for first and second down. And then you give the ball to Cordell Patterson on third down. I really like that pick. I think he's going to end up playing very early for the Atlanta Falcons. Overall, I'm going to give this draft a B-, and I like it. I don't think it's elite, but I will say this. I think they got solid value at various positions. I don't think they reached on a quarterback. Like if they were going to take Ritter, round 3, pick 74, feels about right. Nothing too flashy, but a good overall draft for the Atlanta Falcons. So a B- is my final grade. I will be back later this week. We'll talk about some more draft recaps as we keep this thing rolling. But for now and for today, this has been Grayson Grundhoefer on NFL on 365 Sports.